E3 2017 has come and gone, and Gamers Christmas ended up a mixed bag, as there were many games that made us turn our heads in disgust, or made us jumping for joy like a box full of kittens. After 3 days of covering most of the press conferences along with my friends of the Game Riffers on Twitch, we couldn't help but share our pros and cons toward the games that were at the big event. For this top 10, that is what I'm going to do for all of you. We're going to count down the 5 best games I felt took the spotlight, while also covering the 5 worst games that will make anyone cringe. You may not agree with what is on my list, but I got a bit of advice. This is what I think, and if you don't agree with me, then that's fine. In other words, save the drama. Hey, I'm RRPG here, and I'm here to present to you RRPG's top 5 best and worst games at E3 2017.
Number 5.
When it comes to video games, hack-and-slash action games and JRPGs are 2 out of the many types of genres I really enjoy in the hobby. When it comes to both genres combining together for games to be made in that particular field, most would immediately think of big hits like the Kingdom Hearts franchise and the recent Final Fantasy XV and Nier Automata. However, Monster Hunter has been a strong personal favorite of mine when it comes to both hack-and-slash action and RPGs. And Monster Hunter World was a huge surprise when it came to E3 2017. Being the next big game in the franchise after Monster Hunter Generations and the upcoming Monster Hunter Double Cross on Switch, Monster Hunter World feels like the first true Monster Hunter game to enter the realm of high definition from all over the world. Some of you are probably going to say, "Hey RR, what about Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate? It was on Wii U and that's an HD game." And I say, "Oh wait, that's an HD port of Monster Hunter Tri on the Wii from 2010. Of course, we had Monster Hunter Frontier that was exclusive in Japan, but Monster Hunter World feels like a true evolution in both gameplay and graphics. Taking advantage of the mechanics of the most recent games to have come out, I can't wait but to play this on the PC when it releases during the second quarter of 2018. I'm sure some of you want me to play it on the PlayStation 4 so I can play online with all of you, but after what Jim Ryan has stated about backwards compatibility and crossplay, they lost me from playing any more PlayStation 4 games that have online as their biggest thrust. Sorry Sony, even though this game was one of your few surprises during your press event, the whole conference in general was underwhelming and atrocious.
Number 4.
Still stuck in the genre of JRPGs, the Xenoblade games done by Monolith Soft for the Nintendo consoles have been a major treat for me in the most recent years. Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii and new Nintendo 3DS is a breath of fresh air, with reinvigorating the JRPG genre after its 5-year decline from 2006 to 2010. Its story and gameplay were some of the best you could find in a game of that caliber. When Xenoblade Chronicles X came out, the experience may have underwhelmed some because of its vast landscapes that felt like wasted potential, but the bigger emphasis on gameplay did not make the game become a bore fest. Now onward to 2017, and we get the first true sequel to Xenoblade Chronicles under the guise of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 on the Nintendo Switch. I will admit, I was pretty stoked and excited for this game when it was shown during the Nintendo Switch presentation back last January, and seeing a new trailer and its gameplay during the Nintendo Treehouse livestream makes me even more excited for the game. Seriously, the gameplay looks far more refined and intuitive for what I wanted to see in a Xenoblade game for quite some time, and the story looks to hold so much weight with what Tetsuya Takahashi and his team are cooking up for this new installment. Plus, the characters look like they belong in the franchise, as I was kinda put off by the realistic portrayal of those in the original game, along with the photorealistic anime characters in Xenoblade Chronicles X. The cel shading with the whole anime vibe to the characters looks like what Xenoblade should have been since day one, and the fact that I can play the game either at home or on the go just adds more to the Nintendo Switch's overall charm. Plus, I was surprised that Tetsuya Nomura from Square Enix has a hand in designing 1 or 2 of the characters in the game, so it seems to me that Monolith Soft and Square Enix are possibly starting to rekindle friendships while Nintendo is at the forefront of their partnership. Either way, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is a blessing from the heavens, and the fact that this new entry may be what Nintendo is trying to do in making a long-running franchise out of it to compete with both the Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest games only makes me even more excited for its future. Tetsuya Takahashi, you and your wife Soraya Saga are great individuals in the gaming industry, and I can't wait for this game and whatever else you have coming for it in the future.
Number 3.
Games with the theme of the galaxy have been around since gaming's conception in the 70s. For Nintendo's case in the 80s, they introduced us to the likes of Metroid on the NES, as well as others such as Super Metroid, Metroid Fusion, the Metroid Prime games, and even Metroid Other M. When it comes to extremely popular games with the theme of space, Halo would be the one franchise that comes to people's minds. People thought that Halo 6 would be at the center stage for E3 2017, but that was not the case. By the time when No Man's Sky on the PlayStation 4 and Halo 5 Guardians on the Xbox One came out, fan response has been largely negative to heavily divided. However, Nintendo took the world by storm as they had the Metroid IP come out, told both No Man's Sky and Halo 5 Guardians to turn around, bend over, and made them its bitch. Why? We got 2 new Metroid games coming out, Metroid Prime 4 on the Nintendo Switch, and Metroid Samus Returns on the Nintendo 3DS. Seeing as how we only got the announcement of Metroid Prime 4 with no gameplay, we'll leave that alone until next year. Metroid Samus Returns, on the other hand, looks like a great trip down memory lane that'll make Metroid 2 The Return of Samus more accessible, fast-paced, and a hell of a ride for older fans and newcomers. Metroid Samus Returns ditches the 3D aspect we have seen in the Prime games and Other M, and this game is the first to be fully in 2.5D. Traveling around the planet of SR388 in a more updated and barren look gives us a great reminder of what Metroid is all about. To our surprise, Nintendo is only publishing the remake as Mercury Steam, the people behind the Castlevania Lords of Shadow games on the consoles and Mirror Fate on the 3DS, are the ones working on the game from the ground up. Now we get a full understanding as to why Nintendo shut down AM2R when it came out last year, and I say that what they've shown greatly makes up for their bullish handling of the Metroid IP. Any way you look at the trailer and the announcement of Metroid Prime 4, Metroid is back, and I could not be even more happier. Also, that 2 amiibo pack of both Samus and the Metroid that'll commemorate Samus Returns' launch looks pretty damn good. I gotta get me those in the game reserved right away!
Number 2.
In the world of anime and manga, Dragon Ball has been having quite the rising surge in popularity once more, starting with the 35-minute special at the 2008 Jump Festa, the remake on Plan to Eradicate the Super Saiyans, the Legend of Bardock special, Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods, Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F, and more recently with the ongoing Dragon Ball Super. In video games, Dragon Ball's resurgence started in 2015 with the launch of Dragon Ball Xenoverse, and with the sequel following a year later. It seems that 2018 is going to be the perfect time when Dragon Ball fighting games are going to be even more dope and just frantic as hell. Enter Dragon Ball FighterZ. Or is it Dragon Ball FighterZ? I don't know. Anyway, Dragon Ball FighterZ is the next big fighting game in the Dragon Ball IP coming from Bandai Namco Entertainment, and the best way they can bring this game in beautiful glory is to have it be developed by the creators of both Guilty Gear and BlazBlue themselves, Arc System Works. If you played the recent Guilty Gear game called Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator, then you guys are in for a real treat. Dragon Ball FighterZ uses the same visual aesthetic that Arc System Works utilized for Guilty Gear Xrd when developing the game with Unreal Engine 4 in mind, and the battles are done in a majestic frame rate of 60 frames per second, and having the character animations being exactly like what you would see in the shows Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super. My good friend Ikaricast of the Game Riffers could not contain his excitement as he was happy to see the game in motion, where it acts as a combination of Guilty Gear Xrd with its style and substance, and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 with its switching between characters and their assists in combat. I'm still very excited for it myself, and it really has gotten people within the fighting game community who are not big into Dragon Ball and wanting to actually pick the game up when it comes out next year. Dragon Ball's resurgence continues to grow strong in both anime and video game form, and it only just got better with Dragon Ball FighterZ. It even showed up during the Xbox media briefing of all places. Damn it, I want this game on the PC! Now!
Number 1.
Back to Nintendo. From now, we can pretty much agree that Nintendo is and was the primary attraction for so many people at E3 and at home from E3 with so many great games like Splatoon 2, ARMS, Pokken Tournament DX, Metroid Samus Returns, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and even the new Yoshi and Kirby games announced for the Switch. You remember how The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was Nintendo's biggest attraction from E3 2016 last year? Yeah, they did the same approach again, only for them to be placing the spotlight on their biggest game coming out this holiday season. Enter Super Mario Odyssey. I'll be frank, my tastes with the 3D Mario games have stagnated after Super Mario Galaxy 2 was launched because both Super Mario 3D Land and 3D World underwhelmed me as a longtime fan. They weren't bad games, but they were more aimed with the casual gamer in mind. Super Mario Odyssey, on the other hand, looks to recapture the same magic with what made their 3D platforming collectathon route so revolutionary and everlasting fun when it came to Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and even the Galaxy games. Instead of going through a castle with paintings, walking around a plaza just to get from one area of the island to another, or even going through different galaxies just to try and rescue Princess Peach, Mario traverses into the unknown once more, only for the kingdoms and worlds to be not what you would think they would be for a Mario game. The kingdom of New Donk City with Mario's former love interest Pauline being the mayor, and the Sand Kingdom that pays respect to the ideologies and culture of Mexico is playing more of a real-world type of experience if there are many ideologies, time periods, and cultures that the game is trying to pay an homage to. I know I haven't even talked about the game's main gameplay mechanic of using Mario's hat with eyes named Cappy to be used as a throwing weapon, jumping platform, and even take possession of all objects, living beings, enemies, and other life forms just to get through his adventure of collecting Power Moons to save Princess Peach from getting married by the mighty King Koopa, Bowser. Just the idea that you have a Mario game with all those features just to retrace back to its 3D platform collectathon roots and possibly other games where he made his appearance? That's incredible. This game looks to be the next killer app for the Nintendo Switch, and Nintendo's goal of trying to get so many Nintendo Switch units into people's hands just to play a game like that, Breath of the Wild, and all the other games they have coming out makes me a true believer. The wait for October won't be that long, and you can guarantee that RRPG will gladly buy this game day one. E3 2017 surprised us with games to get us very excited. What about the ones that either underwhelmed us or left us extremely disgusted? There's quite a few of them. Is the one game you couldn't stand on the list? Well, let's go to number 5.
Number 5.
On that Monday night when Sony had their press conference, they started off with doing the exact same thing with what they did for the new God of War game, but they did it for downloadable content that is coming out for a game that has already released. Yeah, they pretty much did what Bethesda did for their press conferences from last year and this year combined. I mean, really? Why would you do that for a piece of downloadable content when those resources should have been placed on a fully packaged product like what you did last year for the new God of War? That makes sense. For a piece of downloadable content when there are those who are already done with the main game from last year is not how you start off your show strong, Sony. Uncharted: The Lost Legacy is proof in the pudding with how their press conference was going to be a major letdown, except for Monster Hunter World, Shadow of the Colossus Remake, and Marvel Spider-Man. They looked awesome. I mean, I know that Uncharted is one of your most prized franchises, Sony, but it really saddens me how you started off your press conference with what you did. Yes, Chloe Frazer is a popular and beloved icon to the franchise, much like Nathan Drake, but that should have been saved during the press conference and not at the beginning. I'm really saddened that we did not see any new footage of Knack 2 or even The Last of Us Part 2, even though I don't care for either game, and it really disgusts me how you pretty much said to everyone that you only just care about PlayStation Experience and not E3, which is far more popular than PlayStation Experience at this time. Uncharted: The Lost Legacy looks to deliver when it releases, but having it being the start of the current console leader's presser was not a great sign. Sorry, Sony, this only marked just the beginning of other games that are on this list. Uncharted: The Lost Legacy was only the first of the worst.
Number 4.
Need for Speed is one of the only few games I really enjoy from Electronic Arts, when compared to the others they have within their lap. Need for Speed didn't really catch on to me until Need for Speed Underground, as street racing made me extremely giddy, and it only got better when its sister series, Burnout, made vehicle destruction and racing on the streets even better. Need for Speed Most Wanted You and Need for Speed Rivals were not too shabby amongst themselves either. But when you started to incorporate elements that strayed away from the formula, like adding a story mode in Need for Speed The Run, my affinity toward the series started to dwindle. It doesn't stop there, as their newest game after a 2-year hiatus hits the scene during EA Play 2017, with Need for Speed Payback. Need for Speed Payback seems to do the exact same thing with what Need for Speed The Run did with having a story mode, only they are going one step above the absurdity we have seen from that past installment. How absurd, you might ask? Well, why not let them add high-speed chases on cars and controlling your character to sabotage an enemy's mode of transportation, like what we have seen in the Fast and the Furious movies with Vin Diesel and Paul Walker. May you rest in peace. Need for Speed is more about being a rebel on the roads or a protector of the peace as you play a rebel driver or a policeman in either setting. This need to add story in a Need for Speed game did not work from before, so why would it work now? Look, we know you want to try harder and harder with exceeding from past games in the franchise, but sometimes that doesn't always work, as the best thing to do is to leave it be and work on a new IP, or leave it be and return to an old franchise like Burnout and bring in a new installment that we haven't seen for quite some time. I did not enjoy Need for Speed The Run when it released, and I will not pick up Need for Speed Payback because of this. EA, you lost me with Need for Speed at this time, so I'll wait for you when you return to doing a new Need for Speed Underground, or even return to Burnout. At least Star Wars Battlefront 2 looks really good, and a step up from the previous game.
Number 3.
Today's gaming has been littered with so many peripherals to where developers try and incorporate gimmicks into their games. Nintendo has been infamous for that when it came to their most recent hardware, but the Nintendo Switch is more of a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, its competitors like Sony, Microsoft, and PC have been guilty of this notion as well. Sony came out with the PlayStation Move to capitalize on the Wii's glory, Microsoft came out with the Smart Glass to compete with the Wii U gamepad, and now all three are starting to incorporate virtual reality into their games, which Nintendo tried to do from over 2 decades prior. Ever since PlayStation VR, Microsoft HoloLens, and VR headsets like the HTC Vive hit the gaming market, it sure didn't stop developers from jumping onto the bandwagon to make games for the peripherals. Microsoft definitely has been taking steps to not oversaturate VR to their consumers, which I applaud them for, but Sony and PC gaming have been going extremely overboard with the craze as E3 2017 was bombarded with that non-stop. EA was doing that for some of their games, Ubisoft did that for some of their games, Square Enix is doing that for Final Fantasy 15, and even Bethesda is doing that for both Skyrim and the 2016 Doom reboot. Although Doom VFR actually looks interesting. I think Razorfist said it best about virtual reality as of recent.
We are fucking sick of fucking VR.
You damn right, man. I am sick and tired of the whole VR fad, as it needs to go away. I don't want Nintendo to fully jump on board with VR with the Switch, even though they are studying it and possibly considering it. The next time I see a game at an E3 that utilizes VR and is heavily promoted at the event or during something like a Nintendo Direct or even PlayStation Experience, I leave it to good old Carl Brutanana Deluski from Aqua Teen Hunger Force to say it best.
Next door, jackass.
Amen, Carl. Amen.
Number 2.
Let's be real here. Capcom is truly a shell of its former self. First off, it tries to maximize profits by outsourcing their games to Western developers, or even giving most of their Japanese games more Western elements in them. On paper, it sounded like a good idea to increase global appeal to their games, but the results did not hit off in full strides like Capcom hoped for. Putting Mega Man on the back burner only to re-release their back catalog and game compilations on current-gen platforms, and even focusing more on what actually makes the money. Their fighting games like Street Fighter 4 and Marvel vs. Capcom 3 have been doing that, but the most recent fighters they are putting out like Street Fighter 5 makes me and so many a non-believer in those franchises because of what Capcom is trying to do. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite seems to go for that same cause if rumors are to be true. However, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite's presence at E3 2017 is only tainting the crossover franchise's reputation because of idiotic decisions that Capcom has been doing as of late. And what's even worse are the character models for the Capcom fighters in that game. Holy crap, Chun-Li! You look grotesque and hardly recognizable! IW ugly instead. Even Dante from Devil May Cry 3 looks like a joke with his design. Granted, it's still his original canon look, but my god does he look like an asshole. I even tried out the story demo that Capcom put out on PSN and Xbox Live, and even the story is cliché, unoriginal, and just laughable, as the characters are nothing but collections of data, where the plot is nothing but crap. Capcom, I know you wanted to reboot this series to start over from scratch, but even being more ambitious with the reboot when compared to the 2D games of the 90s just shows you that you are trying way too hard to broaden this game's appeal. Will I pick up the game at launch? Oh hell no! I might down the road if Capcom plays their cards right, but I have no faith in them and will not pick the game up if they pull the same crap like what they are currently doing with Street Fighter 5. Capcom, admit that your business structure is extremely poor and beg for help to make you great once more, as you being unilateral is not always going to be your saving grace. You truly make me sad. However, that game isn't the one that gets the accolade of my worst game of this year's E3. Oh no! It gets much worse.
Number 1.
Trust me, it honestly does get far more worse than what we could ever imagine, as another game from Sony's press conference was beyond cringeworthy and downright horrendous. Ever since its appearance in the gaming scene with Omicron the Nomad Soul, David Cage seemed like he would be a competent figure amongst the upper echelon of game designers like Hideo Kojima, Hironobu Sakaguchi, Richard Garriott, and even Cliffy B to name a few. His way of how he develops a game with cinematic storytelling in mind could only make him very unique and incredible amongst those of his kind. However, as time passes, that mindset of his would only fabricate his ego, to where every game he makes would need to incorporate the gimmick of wanting gamers to feel like they are a part of the experiences, when fun and intuitive gameplay are not his main focus. Indigo Prophecy was the start, then came the atrocity known as Heavy Rain, and then came the utter abomination that is Beyond Two Souls. Now it looks to get even far worse with his and Quantic Dream's newest project, Detroit Become Human. Last year at E3 2016, I was already disgusted by the idea of him making more of a cinematic experience where gamers can select different ideas to change the story in different ways. Now, the newest trailer that was presented for this year just adds more of a reason why David Cage needs to stop what he is doing, because he is like the Michael Bay of video games, where he is doing the same damn thing for every single game he works on. It's getting tiring and incredibly repetitive that he continues to put out a new cinematic game from every chance he gets. Hey, David Cage, I got a newsflash for you. Games that are mostly cinematic, like what you make, are not fun. Games where gameplay is a minute and pivotal focus are what makes them fun. If you are going to make a fun game, quit trying to be overly cinematic with your experiences and create fun and exciting gameplay to actually make people give a damn about your creations. Seriously, how many more of these ungodly creations do we have to endure where they follow your same shtick over and over again? Now, I'm not saying that you can't redeem yourself in the future by creating new games where cinematic storytelling is less of a focus, while fun and groundbreaking gameplay will help put you back on top. But for E3 2017, when it comes to Sony, along with David Cage and Quantic Dream and their newest game, Detroit Become Human, you fail hard.